Well, I have no idea what I'm going to title this one, but we had a little incident last night that there was a lot of valuable stuff happening in it. It was good, it was bad, it was interesting. Unfortunately, there was a lot of bad, but well, here's the story. And, a lot of it is much like I've said, is accidents are 100% preventable. And what happened last night was completely preventable. And it was entirely my fault. And the way it goes is that one there, I had the saddle on her, left the arena for a little while, and apparently she rolled. We were just assuming because I wasn't here. But all of a sudden, I'm on the other side of the wall over there. I was chatting with somebody, and I could hear this noise that sounded like my stirrups clanking together. Now, I got metal stirrups on mine, so they make a bit of a noise when they bang together, but I'm thinking, well, there's no way they should be hitting each other. I better check this out. Come into the arena, and she's running around like a lunatic, freaked out completely, with the saddle on her belly. Apparently, when she rolled it, shifted it, and, well, that kind of freaked her out. So she's running full steam around. She wouldn't stop, and I wasn't about to be stupid enough to try and step in front of her like some people. So she ran around until she got her foot hooked into a stirrup, and at least I assume that's what happened. It happened so quick I couldn't tell, but eventually broke the saddle loose, and it ended up on the floor. And she was still so worried about it all. A couple more laps before she actually stopped running around like a lunatic, and she was all sweated up and everything else. Took a while to get her calmed back down again. She was pretty nervous about the whole thing. Now, a couple of bad things there. First off, I have a rule, and I have mentioned before, is you never ever leave a horse unattended with a tack on. I broke that rule. My fault entirely. Nothing short of being lazy. It doesn't take long to pull the saddle off. We got lots of saddle stands here to put it on and everything else. There's no reason I couldn't have done that, but I didn't. And that resulted in the whole thing. And to make matters worse, aside from breaking the saddle, I'll show you that here. Not good at all. That piece used to go up underneath there, attached to the tree. As you can see, 2 layers of leather are ripped right off. So at first I was thinking, hey, that's kind of crappy stuff if it comes apart that easy. And then I realized, oh no, that is an awful lot more force than would ever be exerted on it under normal conditions, hooking your cinch onto it. So wrecked our saddle. And unfortunately, this time of year, it's getting to that point where the weather is nice enough that we want to ride outside, and that happens to be the only saddle I have at the moment. So at the moment, we don't have a saddle. I'll get back to that in a minute, though. But she also learned something very bad at the time, is that if she freaked out and ran around enough, eventually what was bothering her went away. So very bad lesson for her. Expensive lesson for me. On the good side, though, we did discover something. I haven't actually ridden this horse since I've had her. I've kind of been putting it off because every once in a while I just see a little hint of something that says, no, she's not quite ready. She still gets a little worried about things. And, well, that was a pretty good demonstration. Having the saddle hanging under her belly got her pretty darn upset. So clearly, if I had been riding her, it is possible that something could have bothered her to that same extreme. Now, if I was there at the time, she probably wouldn't get that worried, but anyhow, it showed that the potential was there. So probably a good thing we haven't ridden her yet. So it was a valuable lesson in that standpoint. It was a positive thing in that way that we learned that it was a good thing we haven't been riding her yet. However, like I said, unfortunately, it really freaked her out, and she learned that by freaking out enough and running around enough, she makes the scary thing go away. That's not what we wanted to learn. Immediately after that, we tried throwing the saddle pad on her. She wasn't having none of that at first, but a few minutes later she settled down, and we had everything sorted out again. But again, back to the saddle. Expensive lesson for me. And for what I paid for this saddle, I bought it used. It's probably going to cost me as much to have somebody fix it as I paid for the saddle. So I'm probably going to attempt fixing it myself because I just hate to see this saddle get wasted. But I did discover something in taking it apart and looking at it is the tree on this one is actually fiberglass, which rather surprised me because this is an older saddle and I didn't think they'd have that. Most people would attribute a fiberglass tree to a junky saddle, but considering the vintage of this thing, I don't know. Like I said, I was surprised it had a fiberglass one, but a fiberglass tree isn't always a bad thing. If it's properly shaped and formed and made a proper thickness material, it's actually probably better, because fiberglass is an incredible material, very strong, and they could have used it to cut production costs and make it a more affordable saddle and still make, you know, a good quality saddle. Looking at some of the construction on it, it's not as good as I thought it was, but it's still not too bad. Could have been better, but obviously it wasn't a high-end saddle to begin with. But just because it's got a fiberglass tree, though, don't automatically think that means the saddle is junk. Fiberglass is a wonderful material, very strong, very light, and if it's properly formed and it's thick enough, it's incredibly strong, and it's going to make your saddle lighter, and it's going to cost less for you to buy the saddle because they can mass produce them. And the labor is pretty expensive, so it can make a more affordable saddle. However, unfortunately, a lot of times fiberglass equates to a mass-produced saddle that is, in fact, junk. So, but don't think that just because it's got a fiberglass tree, it's automatically junk. I looked at it. I looked at how I'm going to get at it, how I'm going to attach it, everything else. I think I can fix it, but still, it's a bit of an inconvenience and an expensive lesson for me. But I just thought I'd share that because I thought there was a few good points there. Is leaving tack on your horse unattended, bad idea. I know better. I did it anyhow. Honestly, nothing more than being lazy. And the horse learned a bad lesson, and I learned an expensive one. So I just thought I'd share that with you. This is what can happen if you get lazy and decide to take shortcuts and don't take the time to take the tack off the horse. Bad things can happen. The horse learned a bad lesson. Tack got wrecked. Fortunately, she didn't get hurt. And fortunately, I wasn't on her, so I didn't get hurt either. So not all bad, but I thought it was something worth sharing because, like I said, a valuable lesson, and this is exactly what can happen if you don't take tack off your horse and you leave it unattended. And I just thought I'd throw in that little bit about the fiberglass tree in there because I was actually surprised to find that in this one when I started taking it apart. But just because it's got a fiberglass tree doesn't necessarily mean the saddle's junk. However, it is possibly an indication it's not a good quality saddle. But in the case of this one, I don't think it's that bad. Looking at it, it looks like it's actually pretty thick fiberglass, which means it's probably actually stronger than a rawhide tree. So maybe not a bad thing. In any case, we may end up still buying another saddle just in case something silly like this happens again. It wouldn't hurt to have a second one. So there you go, folks. Don't leave your tack on the horse. You can end up with a very expensive lesson and a freaked out horse. Okay? Have a good day.